What if I told you that 44% of Americans couldn't handle a $400 emergency expense without going into debt? That's not my opinion. That's according to the Federal Reserve's 2023 Economic Well-Being Report, and it reveals something disturbing about how most people relate to money. But here's what's even more shocking. There are people right now living comfortable, stress-free lives on savings that would make financial advisors laugh. People surviving, no, thriving on $30,000, $20,000, some on even less. How? That's exactly what we're covering today. Every single step, every strategy, every psychological shift you need to make this work for your life. And I promise you this. By the end of this video, you'll understand something that most financial education completely ignores. Living off your savings isn't primarily about the size of your savings. It's about the system you build around it. So let's begin. First, understand this fundamental truth. Your brain is working against you when it comes to money. A study from Princeton University found that when humans think about immediate rewards versus future rewards, different parts of the brain activate. The limbic system, your emotional brain, lights up for immediate gratification. Plus, this is where you do things like grabbing that coffee you don't need, clicking buy now on a late-night impulse purchase, and saying, I'll start saving next month. But delayed rewards? Those activate the prefrontal cortex, your logical brain. Plus, this is where you do things like calculating whether you can afford a vacation next year, deciding to cook at home instead of ordering delivery, and choosing the smaller apartment to build your emergency fund. Here's the problem. Your limbic system is faster. It reacts before your logical brain even has a chance to speak. This is why research published in the Journal of Consumer Research shows that people consistently overestimate how much they'll save in the future while underestimating how much they'll spend today. So step one in living off your savings is accepting that your default mental programming will sabotage you unless you create external systems. What do I mean by external systems? I mean, you don't rely on willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. A famous study from Case Western Reserve University demonstrated that people who had to resist eating cookies performed worse on subsequent tasks requiring self-control. Your willpower depletes like a battery throughout the day. So you build systems that make the right financial choices automatic. Here's your first concrete action. Open a separate savings account, preferably at a different bank than your checking account. Make it slightly inconvenient to access. A study from Brigham Young University found that even small barriers to accessing money significantly reduced impulsive spending. There means doing things like choosing a bank that takes 2 to 3 business days for transfers, keeping the debit card for that account in a drawer rather than your wallet, and setting up automatic deposits so the money moves before you even see it. This isn't about hiding money from yourself. It's about creating friction between your impulses and your savings. Now, let's talk about the math of living off savings, because most people get this completely wrong. The traditional financial advice says you need 25 times your annual expenses saved before you can live off your investments. That's the famous 4% rule from the Trinity study. But here's what they don't tell you. That rule was designed for 30-year retirements with a specific asset allocation in a specific economic era. More recent research from Wade Pfau at the American College of Financial Services suggests that the actual safe withdrawal rate might be closer to 3% in today's low-yield environment. But wait, before you get discouraged, there's another way to look at this. What if instead of asking, how much do I need saved, you asked, how little can I spend? A study published in the Journal of Happiness Studies found something remarkable. Beyond a certain income threshold, which varies by location but is much lower than most people think, additional money does not significantly increase happiness. The researchers found that experiences, relationships, and sense of purpose contributed far more to life satisfaction than material purchases beyond basic needs. So here's step 2. Calculate your actual minimum viable budget. Not your current budget, not what you think you need, your absolute floor. This means sitting down with your bank statements from the last 6 months, highlighting every transaction that kept you alive and healthy, and being brutally honest about what was necessity versus comfort. I know, this is uncomfortable, but stay with me. Research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the average American household spends over $70,000 per year. But when you break down where that money goes, housing takes about 33%. Transportation takes about 16%. Food takes about 12%. Those three categories alone account for 61% of spending for most households. And here is where the magic happens. Each of those categories has a floor that's dramatically lower than what most people spend. Let me show you what I mean. Housing. The average American pays over $2,000 per month in rent or mortgage. But according to research from Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies, geographic arbitrage, moving to lower-cost areas, can reduce this by 50 to 70% without sacrificing quality of life. This means considering places like small cities in the Midwest, where rent averages $800, exploring house-sitting arrangements where you live rent-free in exchange for property care, or looking into co-living situations where you share a larger space and split costs 3 or 4 ways. A fascinating study from Gallup found that people in smaller cities reported higher life satisfaction than those in major metropolitan areas, despite earning less on average. Transportation. The average car payment in America is now over $700 per month when you include insurance, fuel, and maintenance. But research from the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy shows that in properly designed communities, most households can function with one car or even none. Plus, this means choosing neighborhoods where you can walk to grocery stores and basic services, using electric bikes that cost 15 cents per charge and eliminate parking hassles, or joining car share programs where you only pay when you actually need a vehicle. Food. This is where most people leak money without realizing it. The USDA's food plan data shows that a thrifty food budget for one adult is about $250 per month. But restaurant spending? The average American spends over $3,000 per year eating out. This means cooking large batches of rice, beans, and vegetables on Sunday that become 5 different meals throughout the week, learning 3 or 4 recipes so well that preparing them takes less time than driving to get takeout, and treating restaurants as a monthly celebration rather than a convenience default. I know what you're thinking. This sounds like deprivation. But here's where Eastern philosophy offers something powerful that Western financial advice misses. The Buddhist concept of santosha, contentment, isn't about having less. It's about needing less. And neuroscience research from the University of Wisconsin has confirmed that meditation practitioners show reduced activity in the brain's craving centers while maintaining equal or higher levels of reported happiness. The Stoic philosophers understood this 2,000 years ago. Seneca wrote about practicing voluntary discomfort, choosing simpler meals, sleeping on hard surfaces, wearing plain clothes, not as punishment, but as training. Training your mind to need less, so that external circumstances have less power over your peace. A modern study from the University of Zurich found that people who practiced voluntary simplicity, intentionally reducing consumption, reported higher life satisfaction than matched controls who maintained higher spending levels. This is step 3. Shift from an accumulation mindset to a sufficiency mindset. This isn't about being poor, it's about being free. Now, let me share something most financial educators are afraid to tell you. The system is designed to keep you spending. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that exposure to advertising increases materialistic values and decreases life satisfaction. The average American sees between 4,000 and 10,000 ads per day. Each one is engineered, using the same neuroscience I mentioned earlier to trigger your limbic system, to make you feel lacking, to convince you that this purchase will finally make you enough. It's a brilliant business model, and it's making billions of people miserable. So step 4 is a media diet. A study from the University of British Columbia found that reducing social media use by just 30 minutes per day significantly decreased comparison-based spending and increased savings rates. This means unsubscribing from retail email lists that send you deals you never needed, unfollowing influencers whose lifestyles make you feel inadequate about your own, and replacing scrolling time with activities that don't cost money, like walking, reading library books, or calling a friend. I know it sounds almost too simple, but the data is clear. What we consume mentally directly affects what we consume materially. All right, let's get into the practical mechanics of making your savings last. Because knowing the philosophy is important, but you need a system. Here's the method I've seen work for hundreds of people living on minimal savings. It's called the bucket strategy. You divide your savings into 3 buckets, each with a specific purpose and time horizon. Bucket 1, your immediate access fund. This is 1 to 2 years of expenses in a high-yield savings account. Current rates at online banks are offering 4 to 5% annually. This money is for your regular monthly expenses plus any emergencies. Research from Vanguard shows that having this cash buffer dramatically reduces the psychological stress of market volatility in your other investments. Bucket 2, your medium-term growth fund. This is 2 to 7 years of expenses invested in a balanced portfolio, typically 60% stocks, 40% bonds. This money grows while your first bucket covers current needs. This means putting it in low-cost index funds that track the entire market rather than trying to pick individual winners, rebalancing once a year rather than constantly checking and adjusting, and understanding that some years this bucket will go down, and that's expected. Bucket 3, your long-term growth fund. This is everything else. Invested more aggressively in stocks for maximum long-term growth. You won't touch this for at least 7 years, giving it time to recover from any market crashes. A study from JP Morgan analyzed every 20-year period in stock market history and found that none of them resulted in a loss. Time in the market beats timing the market every time. Here's how the system works in practice. Each year, you refill bucket 1 from bucket 2. Each year, you refill bucket 2 from bucket 3. The money flows from long-term to medium-term to immediate, like a waterfall. This way, you're never forced to sell investments during a market crash to cover expenses. Your immediate needs are always covered by stable assets. A study from Morningstar found that people using bucket strategies reported significantly lower financial anxiety than those using traditional withdrawal methods, even with identical portfolio sizes. Now, let me address something crucial that most people overlook: healthcare. In the United States especially, healthcare expenses are the #1 cause of bankruptcy. If you're living off savings and don't have employer-provided insurance, this must be part of your plan. The Affordable Care Act marketplace offers subsidies based on income. If your income is low, which it might be if you're living off savings, you may qualify for significant assistance. This means doing things like timing your investment withdrawals to stay within subsidy thresholds, considering states that expanded Medicaid if your income is very low, and building a dedicated healthcare bucket that's separate from your regular expenses. A study from the Kaiser Family Foundation found that with proper planning, marketplace coverage can be obtained for under $100 per month in many states for individuals earning under $40,000 annually. Don't skip this. A single medical emergency can destroy years of careful savings. Okay, let's talk about something people avoid discussing. What if your savings aren't enough? What if you've done the math and it just doesn't work? First, acknowledge that you're not alone. A study from the National Institute on Retirement Security found that the median retirement savings for working-age Americans is just $35,000. For many people, especially those over 50 who haven't been able to save adequately, the traditional advice of save more isn't helpful. So here's step 5. Create supplementary income streams that don't require full-time work. Research from the Kauffman Foundation shows that people over 55 are the fastest-growing group of new entrepreneurs. Why? Because they have skills, experience, and knowledge that others will pay for.
This means offering consulting in your former industry for 10 to 15 hours per week at rates that surprise you, teaching skills online through platforms where you keep 70 to 80% of course fees, or providing services in your community like pet sitting, tutoring, or handyman work that you control completely. A fascinating study from Stanford Center on Longevity found that people who worked part-time in retirement, 15 to 20 hours per week, reported higher life satisfaction than those who stopped working entirely. This isn't about needing to work, it's about choosing to contribute while maintaining financial security. Now I want to share something that might seem unrelated, but it's essential to making this work long-term. Your social connections will make or break your ability to live on less. A massive study from Harvard, tracking participants for 80 years, found that the single biggest predictor of health and happiness in later life wasn't money. It wasn't career success. It was the quality of relationships. And here's why this matters for your savings. People who feel socially connected spend less on compensatory consumption. Research from the Journal of Consumer Psychology shows that loneliness drives purchases of comfort items, status symbols, and experiences designed to fill emotional voids. This means that someone who feels disconnected might spend hundreds monthly on things like premium streaming subscriptions to avoid silence, frequent restaurant meals eaten alone that cost 3 times home cooking, and impulse purchases that provide a brief dopamine hit but no lasting satisfaction. Meanwhile, someone with strong friendships might spend those same hours hiking together, cooking meals at each other's homes, or playing cards, activities that cost nearly nothing. Step 6. Invest in relationships with the same intention you invest money. This means scheduling weekly calls with distant friends rather than assuming you'll catch up eventually, joining free community groups where you share interests like hiking clubs, book groups, or volunteer organizations, and practicing hospitality by hosting simple gatherings that don't require spending. A study from the London School of Economics calculated that the happiness boost from socializing regularly is equivalent to a salary increase of $85,000 per year. Let me say that again. Regular social connection provides the same happiness as $85,000 more income. All right, we've covered a lot. Let me bring this together into a clear action plan. If you're watching this thinking, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start, here's your exact roadmap. Week 1. Calculate your true expenses. Go through 6 months of bank statements. Categorize every transaction. Find your actual spending floor, the minimum you need to survive comfortably. Most people discover they can cut 30 to 50% without sacrificing quality of life. Week 2. Set up your account structure. Open a high-yield savings account at a separate bank. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account. Create friction between yourself and your savings. Week 3. Audit your subscriptions and recurring payments. Research from C+R Research found that the average American underestimates their monthly subscriptions by over $200. Cancel everything you haven't used in 30 days. Week 4. Begin your media diet. Unsubscribe from retail emails. Unfollow accounts that trigger spending urges. Replace 30 minutes of daily social media with a no-cost activity. Month 2. Start optimizing your big 3: housing, transportation, and food. Even one major change in these categories can free up hundreds of dollars monthly. This means exploring whether moving to a slightly smaller apartment or different neighborhood could save you $300 monthly, calculating whether switching to public transit plus occasional ride shares costs less than car ownership, and committing to cooking at home for 25 dinners per month instead of 15. Month 3. Build your bucket system. Based on your actual monthly needs, calculate how much belongs in each bucket. Begin moving money into the appropriate accounts. And ongoing, continuously refine. Track what you spend. Notice where you're leaking money unconsciously. Adjust, adapt, improve. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. A study from the American Economic Review found that people who tracked their spending, even imperfectly, saved 16% more than those who didn't track at all.
The act of paying attention changes behavior. I want to leave you with something important. Living off your savings isn't about scarcity. It's about freedom. The Tao Te Ching says, "He who knows he has enough is rich." Research confirms this ancient wisdom. Once basic needs are met, additional wealth provides diminishing returns on happiness. What does provide happiness? Autonomy, meaningful relationships, contributing to something beyond yourself. Time to think, create, and simply be. Money is a tool, nothing more. It can buy freedom or it can buy chains. The difference is in how you use it. If you've been trapped in the cycle of earning and spending with nothing to show for it, you can break free. It takes planning. It takes discipline.
It takes a willingness to question everything you've been told about what you need. But the research is clear. The strategies work. And thousands of people are proving every day that you don't need a fortune to live well. You need enough. And enough might be a lot less than you think. So here's what I want you to do right now. Stop the video. Open your bank statement for last month. Count every single transaction. Write down the total for necessities versus wants. Then, come back. Watch this video again, but this time, take notes. Because information without action is just entertainment. And you're not here to be entertained. You're here to change your life. I believe you can do this. The science says you can do this. The only question is, will you? You have everything you need. Now, go build your freedom. But wait, we're not done. Because there are specific strategies I promised to share, and we're just getting to the good stuff. Let me tell you about something called geographic arbitrage, and why it might be the most powerful tool available to you. Here's what most people don't realize. The cost of living varies by over 300% between different American cities. 300%. That means someone spending $3,000 monthly in San Francisco could live the exact same lifestyle for $1,000 in many other places. A study from the Economic Policy Institute created a family budget calculator showing that a comfortable life for a family of 4 costs over $100,000 annually in Washington, D.C., but under $60,000 in rural Nebraska. Same quality of life, 40% less cost. Plus, this means considering places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they actually pay remote workers $10,000 to relocate, or exploring countries like Portugal, where American retirees can live comfortably on $1,500 monthly while enjoying excellent health care. Or even looking at seasonal arbitrage, where you spend winters in low-cost areas and summers somewhere different. Research from International Living magazine tracks the best international retirement destinations, and many offer costs 60 to 70% lower than typical American cities. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can't just leave. My family is here. My life is here. And that's valid. Not everyone can relocate, but even partial geographic arbitrage helps. This means things like spending 3 months per year visiting family in expensive areas and 9 months in a lower-cost home base, or exploring suburbs and smaller cities within an hour of major metros where costs drop dramatically, or considering temporary relocations while building savings that let you return later with more financial cushion. The point isn't that everyone should move. It's that you should know the option exists. A study from Zillow found that most Americans never seriously consider relocating for financial reasons because they assume everywhere else is similar. It's not. All right. Let's talk about something that might make you uncomfortable: debt. Because if you're trying to live off savings while carrying high-interest debt, you're essentially pouring water into a bucket with holes. The average American household carries over $100,000 in total debt. Credit cards, car loans, student loans, mortgages, and here's the math that matters. If you have savings earning 5% in a high-yield account, but you're carrying credit card debt at 20% interest, you're losing 15% annually. That's not a saving strategy, that's a leak. Step 7. Before building your buckets, eliminate high-interest debt. A study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that people who use the avalanche method, paying highest interest debt first, saved thousands more than those using other approaches. Here's exactly how this works. List every debt with its interest rate. Pay minimum payments on everything. Put every extra dollar toward the highest interest debt until it's gone. Then attack the next highest. Repeat until you're free. Research shows this method isn't just mathematically superior, it also provides more motivation because you see progress faster. But here's a crucial caveat most advisors miss. If your debt is low interest, like a mortgage under 4% or federal student loans under 5%, the math changes. An analysis from Vanguard shows that with low-interest debt, you may actually be better off keeping the debt and investing your savings because long-term investment returns historically exceed low interest rates. This is where it gets individual. Your specific debts, interest rates, and timeline determine the right strategy. Now let me share something that most financial content completely ignores. Your health is your greatest financial asset. A study published in Health Affairs found that people with chronic health conditions spent an average of $8,000 more annually on healthcare, plus lost an average of $12,000 in reduced earning capacity. $20,000 per year difference between healthy and unhealthy individuals. No saving strategy can overcome poor health economics. So step 8, invest in prevention. Research from the American Journal of Preventive Medicine shows that every dollar spent on preventive health measures saves $3 to $4 in future medical costs. This means doing things like walking 30 minutes daily, which alone reduces risk of heart disease, diabetes, and depression by 30 to 40% according to multiple studies, or eating primarily whole foods which costs less than processed foods while dramatically improving health markers, or getting regular sleep of 7 to 8 hours, which research links to reduced inflammation, better immune function, and even longer lifespan. A fascinating study from JAMA Internal Medicine found that lifestyle factors, not genetics, not healthcare access, account for 80% of chronic disease risk. 80%! This means your daily choices have more impact on your health, and therefore your finances, than almost any other factor. And here's the beautiful thing. The healthiest lifestyle is also often the cheapest. Walking is free. Cooking vegetables costs less than fast food. Sleep costs nothing. Stress reduction through meditation and nature is free. A study from the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that people who exercised regularly spent 25% less on healthcare over their lifetimes. The choices that build your savings and the choices that build your health are often the same choices. Okay, let's get into some advanced strategies now. For those of you who've been taking notes, who are serious about this, let me introduce you to something called tax optimization. This is where the wealthy keep their money, and you can too. According to the IRS, Americans leave billions of dollars on the table every year by not understanding tax-advantaged accounts. Here's what most people miss. When you're living off savings, your income can be very low, even if your net worth is substantial. And low income means access to benefits designed for low-income individuals. This means potentially qualifying for subsidized health care through the ACA marketplace if your realized income stays below certain thresholds, paying zero taxes on long-term capital gains if your income is below $40,000 for single filers, and accessing Roth IRA conversions at low tax rates that let you shift money into accounts that grow tax-free forever. A study from the Tax Policy Center shows that tax-advantaged accounts disproportionately benefit those who understand them. But most financial education never covers this. Here's a specific strategy called the Roth Conversion Ladder. If you have money in traditional retirement accounts like 401s, Ks, or traditional IRAs, you'll pay taxes when you withdraw. But if you're living off savings with low income, you can convert that money to Roth accounts, pay taxes at very low rates, and then withdraw tax-free. Analysis from the Financial Planning Association shows this strategy can save tens of thousands in lifetime taxes. The mechanics work like this. In a low-income year, you convert $15,000 to $20,000 from traditional to Roth accounts. You pay taxes on that conversion at maybe 10 to 12% instead of the 22 to 24% you might pay in a working year. 5 years later, that converted money is available penalty-free, completely tax-free. This is legal. This is what sophisticated investors do, and now you know about it too. Let me share one more psychological strategy before we wrap up. Because knowing what to do and actually doing it are very different things. A study from the University of Toronto found that people who visualized their future selves in detail saved 30% more than those who didn't. The researchers showed participants digitally aged photos of themselves. Suddenly, retirement wasn't abstract. It was a real person they were responsible for. Step 9. Make your future real. This means writing a letter from your 80-year-old self, thanking your current self for the decisions you're making. creating a vision board with images of what your ideal, low-cost lifestyle looks like, and talking to people who've successfully transitioned to living off savings so it feels possible rather than theoretical. A study from New York University found that mental time travel, vividly imagining future experiences, reduces impulsive spending and increases saving behavior. Your brain treats vividly imagined futures almost like real experiences. So give yourself those experiences. Imagine your future financial freedom until it feels inevitable. All right, let me give you the final piece. Because everything I've shared today will fail if you don't address one thing: your relationship with enough. In a culture that constantly tells you more is better, learning to say, "I have enough," is radical. A study from Cornell University found that people who practiced gratitude, actively appreciating what they have, showed reduced activity in brain regions associated with craving and wanting more. Gratitude literally changes your brain. The Stoics called this the practice of negative visualization, imagining losing what you have to appreciate it more deeply. Research from the University of California confirmed that people who practiced this technique reported higher life satisfaction and lower materialistic desire. This means spending 5 minutes each morning listing 3 things you're grateful for that money can't buy, like your health, a relationship, or a moment of peace, or imagining for just 30 seconds what life would be like without something you take for granted, or consciously acknowledging when you have enough food, shelter, and safety rather than focusing on what's lacking. Step 10. Practice daily contentment. Not passive acceptance, not giving up on growth, but choosing to recognize sufficiency. Because here's the deepest truth I can offer. No amount of savings will ever feel like enough if your mind is trained to want more. And any amount of savings can feel abundant if your mind is trained to appreciate what is. A comprehensive meta-analysis from the University of Pennsylvania analyzed hundreds of studies and concluded that interventions changing mindset about money were more effective at improving financial well-being than interventions changing actual income or savings levels. Your mind matters more than your money. This is what the ancient philosophers knew. This is what modern research confirms. And this is what will actually make living off your savings not just possible, but enjoyable. So, let me ask you directly, are you ready? Are you ready to step off the treadmill of endless earning and spending? Are you ready to question everything you've been told about what you need? Are you ready to build a life of freedom instead of a life of accumulation? Because the path is clear. The research is solid. The strategies work. The only variable is you. Start today. Start with one action from this video. Maybe that's opening a separate savings account tonight. Maybe it's calculating your true minimum budget this weekend. Maybe it's having an honest conversation with your partner about what enough really means for your family. Whatever it is, start. A study from the European Journal of Social Psychology found that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. But the research also showed that missing one day doesn't reset the clock. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to persist. Every day you choose differently is a day closer to freedom. Every dollar you don't spend unconsciously is a dollar that works for your future. Every moment you appreciate what you have is a moment freed from the exhausting pursuit of more. You were not put on this earth to work until you drop just to afford things you don't need. You were put here to live. And living, truly living, costs far less than they want you to believe. Now go. Build the life you actually want. I'll be here when you come back.